you guys remember Strikeforce? Strikeforce was so awesome. You had all this insane talent there and all this prospect of how good they were if they come to the UFC. And at one point, they really were a true rival to the UFC. There was just great fighters like Jacare, Gilbert Melendez, and then you even had future champions like Daniel Cormier, Luke Rockhold, Miesha Tate. But the biggest signing, the biggest crossover from Strikeforce to the UFC, there's only one option. It's Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey was a megastar. Like, and not just in like our little circle of culture, in the mainstream media as well. Movies, talk shows, her post-fighting career, she basically walked into the WWE and was given this insane contract just because of how popular she once was. I knew people who never threw a single punch in their life or never even saw a live fight, and they knew Ronda Rousey, they knew her personality, they knew her look, and they knew how she would even win fights. But how did all this Rousey-Mania start? Well, it started with Strikeforce booking her into as a young, incredible, promising, undefeated fighter against the women's bantamweight champion at the time, Miesha Tate, which simultaneously sparked one of the most famous rivalries in women's MMA, as well as knocking over the first domino that led to the UFC having women fight in their promotion. Strikeforce Tate versus Rousey took place March 3rd in 2012 in the Nationwide Arena in Columbus, Ohio. Strikeforce didn't use the pay-per-view model. It showed fights for free, but it was on Showtime, which is like an HBO. But the commentators for this were a little different. Two UFC legends, Pat Miletich and Frank Shamrock, and Mamma Mia, Mauro Ranallo. So, on the prelims, we have some notable moments. The first one that kind of caught my eye was Ryan Couture, who's the son of Randy Couture, just continuing this legacy that the Coutures have in this Nationwide Arena, as he got a third-round TKO of Connor Hune. And then Pat Healy tapped out Carlos Fedor, the brother of self-claimed superhero Phoenix Jones, and a mostly grappling-heavy affair. There was some striking here and there, but choked him out with an arm triangle in round 3. Sarah Kaufman and Alexis Davis had a really fun, sloppy brawl for like 3 rounds, but it ended in a majority decision win for Kaufman, which granted her a title shot. She was cage side, waiting for the winner of the main event tonight. But now, let's get to the main card. So opening up, we have Jacare Souza, one of the legends in Strikeforce. He was fighting then future Tough 16 contestant Bristol Marunde, who came in at short notice as Derek Brunson had a really bad eye exam, like the commission just not letting the fight go through, so here in comes Marunde. So the opening round is basically all Souza. He's working his improved boxing, and he's trying to get some takedowns, and he manages to get one. He takes the back. He does land some hard ground and pound, but with some maybe hitting the back of the head, so no nonsense. Keith Peterson just stands him up. Instantly after that, Marunde kind of plots forward, gets leveled with a big straight right, goes for a takedown, has to defend the guillotine now. And from here, again, it's just all Jacare. When Marunde gets out of the guillotine, he's throwing him to the ground, beating him up. Near the end of the round, at least Marunde does get up and press Jacare to the cage. But this is just an all Jacare round. Second round, and Jacare just beats up Marunde more. He lands some big shots in the striking that wobble him. Then he starts going to swarm, and Jacare lands a spinning back kick to the head that lands clean. I don't know how Marunde didn't go out. It was a tough dude. Jacare gets another takedown briefly. Marunde does a good job of defending and getting back to his feet before getting thrown again. The rest of the round is just a skill difference between the two, as Jacare just seemingly can't miss with his strikes. He just batters him with big right hands, snap kicks up the middle, even a good leaping left hook that I liked. 10 seconds left. He just gets a really big easy takedown to ride out the rest of the round. And this third round, Marunde, he's down 2-0. He starts going in for a big hook instantly, just tossed to the mat though. And Jacare's in half guard, trying to work some strikes and trying to advance. Marunde is trying to sneak and get back to his feet, trying to sneak out, but he gets his back taken. This was a trap set by Jacare, who wants him to turn over and give him out because he's been setting up an arm triangle choke.
And it is over. Jacare Souza submits Bristol Marunde in round 3.
I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. It's a good second round, but it's just so dominant, like that the finish just felt inevitable, and that leaves like a bad taste in my mouth personally. Oh well. Bristol Marunde would go on to be in Tough 16, where he did not let Julian Lane bang bro, before going 0-2 in the UFC, before calling it quits in 2015. But I wouldn't feel too bad for him though. He was actually the star alongside his wife in an HGTV show. It's called Flip or Flop Vegas. And apparently it's still ongoing, but it just hasn't had an episode since 2019. Jacare, on the other hand, legend in the sport, doesn't need any real introduction. And despite never claiming a UFC title, he truly does have one of the crazier and better careers. In 2021, he called it quits after 4 straight losses, with his last one being a brutal submission loss to Andre Muniz. Next up, we have Kazuya Misaki versus Paul Daley. And this is a pretty fun and interesting welterweight match for me. Kazuya Misaki, who's known for being a middleweight fighter, like he was coming down at welterweight to test the waters, it seemed like. He was on a 2-fight winning streak outside of Strikeforce, and his last loss was in 2010 in one of the best, unheard of fights ever against Jorge Santiago. But Paul Daley, on the other hand, well, he's making his return to the promotion after losing his last 2 fights inside Strikeforce, a barn burner of a fight against Nick Diaz, and getting kind of laid and preyed on by then really good up-and-coming prospect Tyron Woodley. But he still had that legendary, dangerous left hook. Out of the gate, both dudes are kind of feeling each other out. Daley's kind of pumping a jab, and Misaki's trying to land some good inside low kicks. But the first big moment, Daley looks to sidestep and low kick, kind of a classic Muay Thai technique, and Misaki just catches the kick for a beautiful takedown. Daley does get back up to his feet after a little bit of grappling. Misaki instantly throws out a snap kick to the body, and later on even lands some great hooks to the body and knees to the body, while Daley's kind of headhunting a bit this whole fight. Both dudes at one point end up throwing big right hands, but Misaki moves his head off center and just clobbers Daley. Hard shots to the head, to the body, and Daley seems to be a step behind. Then Paul Daley, the guy infamous for booing his own fights, where John Fitch was wrestling him down and holding him down, shoots a takedown. And, I mean, honestly, Daley just holds him here until about 10 seconds left, where he tries to posture up to land some bombs. Misaki does get tagged, but he ends up reversing him. But that's the end of the round, and I think that's a Misaki round. Round 2, Misaki is just outstriking Daley, even bloodying him up with some great punches and using solid kicks peppered in there with even a really good knee to the liver that definitely hurt Daley bad. Daley is wrestling here. And Miletich and Shamrock even brought it up on commentary. This might be the most takedowns Daley has ever thrown in his entire fighting career. Despite all this wrestling from Daley, he's the one that's gassed. He's the one that's slowing down compared to Misaki. Round 3, Daley's landing this jab that's blooding up the nose though now, and it's actually kind of like flattening it. And he does get the big takedown, where he lands some really good in-tight elbows that cut right above the eye. It was a nasty cut for Misaki, and it's just bleeding all over. Doctors come in. They say he's good to continue for a little bit. And at this point, Misaki might be a little worried he gets stopped for the cut, and he just begins stalking Daley across the cage. And anytime Misaki gets close, he's landing big punches to the head or the body, and also throwing in those good kicks in as well. Daley's looking gassed and just mentally kind of broken here. So the judges ended up giving it a split decision, probably because Daley takedowns, I would have to imagine. But Misaki does get the nod regardless, thankfully. I feel I scored this fight an 8 out of 10. I really like it, but I wish Daley threw more here, as we had what really feels like a recipe for an all-time classic. But Misaki was great in this fight regardless. So after this, Misaki would retire. This was the last fight of a crazy career with wins over Dan Henderson, Akira Soji, and Ed Herman. And that's what I really love about these retro reviews, is there's always a career no one talks about that I can highlight for you guys to go and check out. Seriously, Santiago Misaki 2 in 2010, trust me, go watch it. It's insane. Daley, on the other hand, this was his last fight in Strikeforce. He wasn't brought into the UFC from Strikeforce, obviously, and he went on to have a lengthy career, mostly fighting in Bellator primarily, but in recently of May of this year, in 2021, he called it a career in MMA. In our co-main event now, we have a lightweight title eliminator for a chance to fight Gilbert Melendez, and with Josh Thomson taking on KJ Noons. So KJ Noons might sound familiar if you're a Diaz fan. He was the recipient of the legendary "Don't be scared, homie" line back in Elite XC. What you may not know is that for a while, he was one of the hottest prospects at lightweight, just known for this dangerous, incredibly smooth, incredibly technical striking style. And he was the Elite XC lightweight champion, and then when he got to Strikeforce, his hype train was still going until it was derailed in a welterweight title rematch against Nick Diaz. Josh Thomson is another name infamous among Diaz fans, as he was the first person to KO Nate Diaz. Thomson has just fought everybody, it feels like, from his era. Clay Guida, Hermes Franca, Dwayne Ludwig, former Strikeforce champion. He defended against Gilbert Melendez, and then he lost it in their second fight. And so he's looking to get a third crack here. So Gilbert Melendez jumps on commentary for the fight, and instantly both dudes are kind of looking for like long, low kicks to set the stage. Thomson starts going for some kind of wilder stuff, though. He tries to go for an Imanari roll, fails. And Nunes is just pressing forward with his mummy guard. Thomson does get a takedown halfway through the round, and he just holds Nunes the remainder of the round. Round 2, we see Nunes trying to be more aggressive and trying to force Thomson to like kind of really throw with him, even taunting a little bit. Thomson goes for a high kick, slips. KJ comes to the ground with him. Bad move. Thomson just reverses it and manages to get Nunes on his back. Thomson tries to posture up by palming the face, and some of the fingers kind of touch the eyes, which, you know, in fairness, that's technically illegal. Stand the fight back up. Nunes begins landing some great strikes in the round, but just as soon as the momentum is turned in his favor, he just gets dumped on his back once more. Thomson just keeps the control for the remainder of the round. Final round, Nunes trying to get his striking working again. Thomson manages to get a big trip and starts getting this really good looking arm triangle. Nunes escapes it, but he's just struggling to get Thomson off of him, and that's the whole round too. Thomson just stays on top for the remainder of this fight. You know, when I saw this card was next up, I remembered watching it live, because I've watched a lot of almost every card ever, it feels like, live. And for some reason, I didn't remember anything about this card in particular, or this single fight on this card in particular. Except that it was really boring. And that memory was kind of true. I'm giving this a 3 out of 10. I think that's the lowest I've ever given a fight so far on the Retro Review. It's not the worst fight ever, you know, obviously. But it just, I don't know, nothing happening. And the grappling was just so one-sided and lackadaisical that I wasn't really feeling this fight at all. Nunes would fight once more for Strikeforce before moving to the UFC, where he went 2-3-1. He was released by the company in 2016, and he hasn't fought since. Thomson, well, he would get his fight against Gilbert Melendez in the Trilogy Decider, losing a pretty close fight, if I remember correctly, by decision. And from there, he would go to the UFC, having one of the best debuts ever in the aforementioned Nate Diaz TKO, before dropping 3 straight to Benson Henderson, Bobby Green, and El Cucuy Tony Ferguson. After being released, he went to Bellator, going 2-1 before calling it a career in 2020. So now, the main event. Miesha Tate defending her strap against Rowdy Ronda Rousey. Tate was actually on a pretty hot streak going into this fight. 6-fight winning streak with 4 finishes, including the only 2 decisions were in this crazy 2 fights in one night tournament that Strikeforce used to do. Those were crazy days. Rousey was 4-0 coming into the fight, and she was fighting for a world title in her 5th professional fight. Like, that's almost unheard of nowadays, I feel like. I think the closest thing we have to that is Alex Pereira right now. So, one thing that made this fight really big in terms of height is the fact that these 2 ladies, yeah, sure, they're attractive women. The big one, though, for me, was they had massive beef with each other. Ronda has always just talked the insane amount of trash to everyone that can potentially fight her. And that's, in my opinion, how she revs herself up. She carries herself like this unstoppable, incapable of flaws, larger-than-life personality to mentally prep herself for a fight. And this can rub people the wrong way. Miesha Tate is one of those people. Out the gate, Miesha comes out swinging these big arm punches. Miesha tries to go for a double in the clinch, and Ronda just reverses it, gets Nab's top position. Ronda locks in a tight armbar, it looks like, and the crowd explodes. Somehow, Miesha Tate escapes, though. The first person to get out of that arm lock. Tate actually manages to get Ronda's back as she's trying to turn out and explode, and it's officially the longest fight of Ronda's career at this point. Ronda's trying to explode out and stand up. She even tries slamming Miesha's exposed head at one point when she does get to her feet. Ronda hits the backdoor escape, and she's there now on their feet. Great judo trip, but while trying to float over, Tate actually tries to counter with a Darce, try to get a front headlock position. Super slick stuff. So Ronda goes for her jab, chin up high, right hand down low, and she eats a good left hook for her troubles. Ronda gets one of the best looking hip tosses I've ever seen. Now in dominant position, Ronda gets mount, takes the back before looking for another armbar. This time, it's fully extended, and it's nasty.
Oh, she's going to break it. Oh. She's dropping it.
But that's the fight. Ronda is now the new Strikeforce Women's Bantamweight Champion, and the world fell in love with her. Ronda-mania became a thing. And I actually forgot how good this fight was. I just remembered when I saw this fight, I remembered being really pumped for it because at the time I was a big Ronda Rousey fan. I'm not so much anymore. I really don't. I'm not too fond of her now, but at the time I was really interested in her as a fighter, and I forgot. I just remember being excited back then. But this fight's actually really good. I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10. Really good grappling moments. The striking was a little brief and sloppy, but that's okay. It was still fun. Ronda would actually defend her belt in another armbar win over Sarah Kaufman before starting her legendary UFC run. In 2016, she fought for the final time in MMA, and in 2018, she joined WWE to become a professional wrestler, where she still is today. Tate also had a Hall of Fame level career after this, and she also retired in 2016 before making a comeback in 2021. Currently, she's dropping to flyweight, hoping to challenge champion Valentina Shevchenko. In terms of entertainment value, I'm going to give this fight card a 7. But in terms of significance, though, this is one of the most significant in our sports history. This is something that we should hold up. Yeah, just because something's not that great top to bottom, that doesn't mean the significance isn't there. But if this card didn't happen, I don't think we ever have women fighting in the UFC today. That means no fights like Joanna Wiley Zhang 1 or Jessica Andrade Claudia Gadelha. No incredible stories like Miesha Tate finally winning the big one, or Rose's incredible run to the title and winning it. This card holds real meaning, and that's something you can never take away from it. Well, it's about that time, and if you really miss my ugly mug, then you can catch me over on INC Live, where I recap every fight after they happen. And if there's a card you want me to cover, join the Patreon, where you can choose a card for me to talk about. Plus, with Leon Edwards taking on Kamaru Usman for the welterweight title, in the next Retro Review, I'll be talking about a card featuring a British title challenger. But for now, I'm Joe with the INC. Thank you for watching.